What is up, guys? Rick Hackis here, going over the upcoming House of Wolves DLC and how they can greatly improve the exotic weapons added in that expansion. Now, a lot of the news sources I've seen have said that this DLC, the House of Wolves, is make or break for Bungie. They're either going to nail this DLC out of the park or lose a substantial portion of their player base, because frankly, Dark Below was pretty average. Now, there's quite a few reasons it was pretty average, and there's quite a few things Bungie can do to improve this next DLC. But I think one of the easiest things they could do is to make the weapons added, is to make the exotic weapons added actually usable. Because if you think about it, all of the exotic weapons added in the Dark Below DLC were garbage. And it's embarrassing. You gotta remember, you're paying for this content. And you're paying for, 4 exotic weapons that are absolute crap. Let's go Necrochasm. I mean, it's average at best, and in most times it's pretty subpar. The No Land Beyond is so bad that it's become a running joke within the Destiny community. Like, it's like a challenge. Can you do this with the No Land Beyond, because it's so bad? And the Fourth Horseman, average in PvP. Actually, it's decent in PvP, but pretty garbage in PvE. In fact, never utilized in PvE. And the Dragon's Breath is pretty much considered by everyone not very good. I understand missing a mark on 1 or 2 exotic weapons, but to miss the mark on all of them is pretty astounding. Now, you may be asking yourself, why am I so concerned about exotic weapons? Why do adding exotic weapons even matter? I mean, what about the legendary weapons? They added some pretty decent legendary weapons. And you're right, a lot of the raid weapons are pretty darn good, I will admit that. But, the exotic weapons, they really do matter. And again, to miss the mark on all of them is bloody huge. You're paying, this is a $20 expansion, or claimed to be expansion. To have every single exotic gun added in that expansion be crap, that is certainly not what I paid for, and it's kind of disheartening. And I want you to think of how many hours, if you haven't got the Gjallarhorn, think of how many hours you, or maybe people you know that haven't got the Gjallarhorn, have spent specifically trying to get that gun. Like, think of just the aura around the Gjallarhorn, the exclusivity of the Gjallarhorn, kind of its legendary status of, if you get the Gjallarhorn, it's kind of like the best gun in the game. And again, think of how much playtime has been dedicated to people trying to get the Gjallarhorn. Why can't there be another gun like that? How awesome would it be to have a shotgun or another sniper just be like fabled to be this amazing weapon? It's so good against bosses, it's so good in PvE, and to be working towards getting that weapon, that feeling of accomplishment when you actually get it. Guys, getting the Gjallarhorn is like one of the main reasons why people still play the game. I want another Gjallarhorn. I want another weapon to really force people, to make people want to play the game, to really love getting loot again. That's what I want. And that shouldn't be something that is too much to ask. That's the point of a loot-based game like Destiny. So that's why I think it's so important to fix the exotics and to fix how they're introduced in DLCs. Now, I'm not just coming to you with a problem, I'm coming to you with a solution as well. There is an extremely easy thing Bungie can do to completely fix this problem, to make new guns introduced, exotic weapons, good in both PvP and PvE. Now, before we do that, we have to understand why these weapons aren't good, and there's 2 main reasons. Now, reason number 1 why the exotics just weren't that good is that, and it's something that, it's not necessarily Bungie's fault, a lot of game developers slightly miss this, and you have to consider that when you're introducing new exotic guns, they are competing with all of the exotics in the game, and they are competing with the best exotics in the game. The best example I can use is with the Dragon's Breath rocket launcher. So the Dragon's Breath, if it was in the game in its absolute inception, if the Dragon's Breath launched with Destiny, probably wouldn't be such a bad thing if it was your first ever exotic. If you first ever exotic got the Dragon's Breath, it would be kind of cool. I mean, cool looking weapon, has a massive radius, and it leaves behind a Sunslinger grenade that damages enemies still. I mean, you would be pretty impressed with that gun. But the problem is that since you're introducing it in a later DLC, a lot of the people in the game have already acquired quite a few exotics in the game, and their collections, they've kind of separated the best of the best. So now, when you're introducing the Dragon's Breath and you already have people who have Gjallarhorns, it's not even a competition. It's just so completely outclassed by the Gjallarhorn that people just take one look at it and, crap. So you got to have that in your mind when you're a developer. You got to know this is competing with the best of the best. This isn't looking to be average. This is looking to be top tier or have an extremely niche market, or I shouldn't say market, but a niche use that in this use, it's just so phenomenal. And that's what they should be aiming for. Now, reason number 2, and this is the most important reason, it's also the most delicate reason because people, they get a little antsy and they get a little concerned because they often kind of misunderstand what I'm saying. But reason number 2, these guns all suck, is the Crucible. Now, you know what? I'm going to completely rephrase that. It's not the Crucible's fault. It's not people who play the Crucible's fault. It's Bungie's fault for not being able to account for the Crucible in weapon balancing. PvP and PvE are two completely different things. I shouldn't have to, it's mind-boggling that I have to explain this, not to you guys, but to Bungie, the developers. The best example is shotguns. If you play PvP, shotguns are everywhere. Everyone knows that. But in PvE, they were utilized so little. In fact, it was only 1%. 1% of people were utilizing shotguns in the endgame content. They were utilized so little that Bungie had to double their damage against non-PvP enemies. So against just minions of the darkness. If that's not a better illustration, if that's not such a vivid illustration of how different these two systems are, I don't know what is. Now let's go over, again, a great example, the No Land Beyond. I want you guys to honestly think and honestly ask yourselves, why do you think the No Land Beyond is garbage? Why do you think it's not a semi-automatic sniper rifle? Do you really think it's because Bungie was worried about you running around semi-automatic Mountain Dew 360 no-scoping thralls in PvE? Probably not. Do you think it was possibly because Bungie was really nervous about introducing a primary sniper, and that a primary semi-automatic sniper that would kill in one headshot would be completely overpowered in PvP? I think the logical answer is that Bungie was worried about it being overpowered in PvP, and they were so worried that they completely nerfed the gun to crap, and now it's terrible in both PvP and PvE. The fact is that when you introduce a gun that has to be balanced in a PvP system, it's automatically going to be pretty bland. You're introducing guns and you're immediately off the bat saying they can't be better than any of the other guns of their class. And this absolutely does not translate into success, especially when you're then saying the gun is exactly the same for PvE. You're introducing a gun that has to be balanced for PvP, and that gun is no different from the PvE version. There's no two different versions. It's just the same gun. It just doesn't work, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that. Now, what's my solution? Well, don't worry. If you play PvP, I'm not going to go and suggest introducing certain guns only for PvP and then certain guns only for PvE. Don't worry. I am not saying that at all. My solution is so simple. In fact, it's something that Bungie has already been doing with certain guns and armor. And that solution is PvE-only perks. That's it. There's really nothing else to it. Now, again, Bungie's already done this. Certain armor has more super energy when you kill minions of the darkness. You probably own a piece of armor that has these words written on it. Again, so it does more stuff when in PvE. Like when you're killing minions of the darkness, when you're killing PvE enemies, you're developing more super energy so you can do supers more often. No, obviously, this would be completely overpowered in the Crucible. You can't have stuff like this introduced in the Crucible. It just wouldn't work. I'm not an idiot. But why can't this be utilized in more scenarios, on more guns? Now here's an extremely practical example. The Fourth Horseman, the DLC, PS4 exclusive DLC shotgun introduced in the Dark Below. So, 4 rounds, very rapidly, very powerful gun, but its range just isn't enough for PvE. It's pretty decent in the Crucible, like it does fit into the Crucible, but because it's shotgun, its range is even lower than most shotguns. It does a lot of damage, but again, that range makes it basically unusable in PvE. How do you fix this? Well, why not just introduce a perk that says massively increased damage against majors? Hold on a sec. Now we have a gun. Now we have some, and I'm suddenly interested. If it's a shotgun and I can kill, a fallen captain in 1 or 2 shots with a shotgun, I'm fucking in. I want this damn shotgun. And it's still going to be very good in PvP. Suddenly, both sides of the equation are happy. Now also, I think it's extremely important to understand, I don't want to take away from any of the attachments in the game because I think that detriments PvP. It's not fair where if you have, your main attachment for the gun is something for PvE and you never play PvE. I'm not asking that. But why does the gun layout, like the perk layout of the guns, it's not set in stone. You know, unless Moses came with a stone carving of the gun layout to Bungie headquarters, they can start messing around with the gun layout, and the best example is with something like the Abyss Defiant. Now that's a raid auto rifle introduced in the Dark Below. It actually has two, where most guns have one option. It has two. It can switch between whether something is hipfire, or it can have, when it aims down sights, it shoots slower and does more damage. So they introduced a perk where most guns don't have a perk. Do that more often. Just introduce a perk where guns don't normally have a perk, so you're not taking away from anything in PvP, but then introduce an additional perk that says does more damage against Majors, does more damage against Hive, makes Minions of the Darkness explode, increases your super energy against Minions of the Darkness, increases your grenade when damaging Minions of the Darkness. Any of these ideas would be awesome, and they would make a gun that's still usable in PvP and that can be balanced for PvP, but because it has awesome PvE only attachments, is propelled into the endgame where it can compete with the other PvP focused guns like the Galahorn and like just kind of the guns that have been dedicated as great PvE guns. And that's really all there is to it. Just introduce guns that have PvE only perks in places where they don't usually have perks. I don't want any perks taken away and detrimenting the PvP players. This would really solve a lot of problems and make a lot of the newly introduced DLC guns good in, again, PvP and useful in PvE. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you agree with this idea, please remember to share this. Tweet this at Bungie. We're not going to get anything changed unless Bungie actually acknowledges this video's existence. And it's up to you guys to help me make that happen. Again, I really hope you guys enjoy the video. Please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a good day.